Easy ye, how are we?
Shawnee, I'm excited, actually.
You're excited? Oh, okay.
Yeah, well,
Christmas.
no,
In the Christmas spirit? No, is it too early to mention Christmas on a November
no.
episode of the podcast? Is that what we're talking about here?
There's 35 degrees outside and 90% humidity, Sean, so it doesn't feel like Christmas. So, I don't know, maybe when I get home we can start talking about Christmas.
There won't be snow in Africa this Christmas time, you know, for a fact. What has
That's
you
all right.
excited, Eric? What has you excited if it's not Christmas?
Well, it's 16 weeks now to Barcelona, which has me excited. So we are kicking off our plan for those who are willing to train from now until then. A lot of people have given me a lot of heat saying, no, we'll start in January. And I don't think that's how marathons work, but we'll see in January how it goes. And that's coming from me, someone who doesn't train. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the 16 weeks. And I'm feeling a little bit of the pressure of being the leader, I suppose, of the charge, because now I actually have to run, which is a nice thing for me to do. And then as well, like I've one day left here in Mozambique, and oh geez, our next intro could be recorded from Italy, and then we're moving home from Dubai. Yeah, so it's a yeah. Do you know what? I'm actually a little bit nervous about moving home.
You went from excited to nervous and stuff all of a sudden.
Yeah. Well, you always tell me it's not nerves, it's
and...
excitement. It's not nerves, it's excitement. And then I'm like, yeah, no, I am excited.
thing.
But there's an element of, a little bit of apprehension about coming home, because what was isn't. And, when you step away for 2 years and you come back, it's like, oh, it's not like, oh, just there's a new roundabout. It's like people have changed. Some of my friends have kids. People have got married. There's particularly at the age we're at, a lot has probably changed in 2 years. So yeah, a little bit of excitement, but apprehension and all. And then after 2 weeks, it'll all be fine. But Christmas is a good time to be coming home, I suppose, for reintegrating, I suppose.
Yeah, wait till you see how much the price costs now when you're coming back home than they did 2 years ago.
Oh God, yeah, not excited anymore. Nah, look, it's all good. But it's good then to have this marathon training plan as well, to kind of keep a little bit of focus and keep the training in, because especially now with all the moving and the traveling, it can be a lot to take on a training plan. But I'm looking forward to it, to kind of keep that little bit of discipline. We talk about on this show the whole time, Sean, that particularly with me, you're probably a little bit better because you always have the Donaghadee 50k. But after Dublin or even it was the Ironman, I didn't want to do anything, and then you get to February and I'm like, oh, here we go again. So this time it's probably the first year, and I know we had Kevin on a while ago, and he was telling us he probably doesn't actually like the spring marathon because it's probably too much to try, and when you're trying to increase that PB. But for me, I think it's going to be really good because it's scaring me a little to keep training.
Yeah,
because I don't want to be left behind again, and I think it could be the first year in a couple of years I get to January and go, geez, I'm actually at an okay foundational level for like, what goals do we want to set now for 20? Because I think a lot of people get to January unfit and then go, right, let's set our goals for the year, and then it's like, oh shit, this is hard.
Overshoot it. Yeah,
and so now it's kind of, my goal is, let's get to January with 6 weeks training, and then let's have a look at how fit are we in January, what's realistic, what races are coming up. And yeah, no, it's an exciting time, and I just know people are fed up. They're fed up. They're in shopping mode. Traffic is mental. They're spending money, and the last thing they want to do when it's cold and dark is go for a run. So it is tough, and I suppose it does. It's motivation exists for some people like me an hour. Discipline is the only thing, and then people will see the memes and people will see this and Kachobe talking about it, but motivation is a fad. It's like a 6 week diet. It does a great job, it gets you out the door for the first couple of times, but then when you get bored of it, it's just discipline that takes over. And I think that's what people are, and that's why I admire athletes who are training through the winter, and you see them out putting in the miles and wearing all the gear and the head torches and trail runs. It's discipline and the joy of the social side as well. And that's why I think the social side is so important, because when somebody's waiting on you, you can get out there and do it, and it keeps you disciplined. So you use each other for discipline because you don't want to let each other down, So it's, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to using every trick in my sleeve to try and get myself to January in a slightly better position than I am now.
With that discipline comes structure, and starting this plan, you said a 6 week mini plan towards Christmas, and then going from January from there. When you're doing a marathon 16 week plan, it's like, where do I start? What am I at before? What paces I'm doing? But you've gone a step further now, and you've actually set yourself a little target over the weekend, what you're doing to start this, and then building from there. So what did you do over the weekend?
Yeah, so over the weekend, and I set a challenge to all the guys in the group, and I think 97% of them told me to go and fuck myself. But it was a lactate threshold test. So yeah, it's basically it's just seeing where you're at in terms of your lactate threshold. So your lactate is basically your body produces it as we exercise. When we're walking around or sitting around, you're still producing an element, but we clear it as almost as soon as it's been produced. But as you push and push and push, you obviously then reach a threshold where your body can't clear as much as you're producing, and then you're onto
Right.
that ticking time, you know. So by doing a lactate threshold test, basically, now we did a 20-minute one. Now normally it's the best thing is blood, you know. You do the pinprick and you can actually test the lactate in the blood, you know, and that's
Yeah.
the gold standard, the top end. And we've had guests on talking about it, and what we might do is relink that during the week, and we might put up a blog about it and rehash that episode of talking about lactate threshold from the experts, and then with this, it's a good guide. Do you know what I mean? It's not a perfect science, but then we're running off
Gives you
watches
structure.
that
Yeah.
is not a perfect science. But for a lot of the time, particularly in the heat, I find when I'm doing my slow runs, my heart rate is just high no matter what, but I'm not working hard. You know, I'm
Yeah.
not feeling like I'm burning. It's just slightly higher than I would be normally used to from years of doing it at home. So with the lactate threshold, for me, it was about finding out, right, well, what is my pace at this temperature? You know, where is that line for me? And the 20-minute test is really good. You're supposed to be consistent, you know. You're supposed to be 7 out of 10 RPE and pushing, but you shouldn't be blowing up after a kilometer going, oh my God. Now, I did get to 2, I ended up doing 4.5 or something in the 20 minutes. I can't remember the exact numbers, they're not in front of me. 4.37 rings a bell, or thereabouts. And when I got to about 3K, I was like, okay, when is this over? This starting to do the calculation of where is the finish line relative to my lap, and yeah, because your last kilometer, your last 3 minutes are supposed to be your fastest. You're
Okay.
supposed to be at a stage where, yeah, you're hurting, but you can still do a little bit
Push
more.
around.
And then when the finish line comes, you're done, you know. And then that then is supposed to say that that's your pace for around 40 to 60 minute pace that you could probably hold. And then you can, when you do your workout plan, you can decide then, okay, well, my marathon, and there's numbers behind it, like you multiply it by 1 point, whatever it is, and that gives you your tempo pace. 1 point, whatever it is, gives you a marathon pace, you know. So
Okay. So the structure. Yeah.
yeah, so a lot of the times, and the reason I talk about this, I'm looking for something different, Sean, because we've talked about heart rate training. And when I was in Ireland, heart rate training suited me so well. I loved it. Hated the first 3 weeks until we adjusted. But then it was like every week I could see, oh my God, I'm running like 10 seconds a kilometer quicker for the same cardiac output. I'm holding
Yeah.
140 and I'm faster. And that was addicting. That was genuinely addicting. But I haven't been able to do that in 2 years. To be at those levels that it was, because we have the benefit of colder weather. It does give you an aid, you know. It is a help. Not like be all end all, but when it's 30 degrees, it's a big difference. So for
We
now,
don't feel like it's a benefit right now over here.
no, it's definitely
But I
not
know what
a
you're saying.
benefit. Yeah, but it's, you know, when you're trying to do heart rate training, like we talk
Yeah.
about Dublin when it gets to 16 degrees, everyone's like, "Oh, geez, the heat killed us. That was
Mm.
the end of the marathon for everyone." It's like, so we all know that temperature plays a role, and then you double that temperature and you try to do intervals in it. But the annoying part for me is when I do my intervals from 4 to 800 meters, I can still do a 345 per kilometer pace for 400 and do 6 to 8 of them, and not like, yeah, die as much as you normally do in intervals. But it's like that's why I'm looking at pace now more so than heart rate, because I've just gotten frustrated with it. So I'm going to give
Mm.
pace a go and just see how I adapt to it. And like, there might be people out there that are saying, "Oh, that's completely wrong," and you can add in a factor. So temperature you can add in a penalty, for example. So at 30 degrees, and that's part of the science, you can add in like an extra 20% onto your time, and that's the heat element. So you've factored
Yeah.
that in. So instead of it's not realistic to say, well, this is my goal. But because I did the test in this environment, it actually is my goal. So
Right.
when I return to Ireland, I should probably remove about 10 seconds per kilometer because I'll be able to operate at a higher level. Is what is what the science says now. I hope people actually do get involved in the conversation about it. But but that's my thinking behind, because I've tried to monitor heart rate, don't push too hard, don't do this. And now I'm just like, I think I just need to go back to paces. Seeing six
Mm.
minute 30 kilometers every day is soul destroying. And I don't say that as a disregard to anyone that does it. It's when you have been at 430 kilometers for 30 Ks. And now I'm like, my heart rate's 160 and I'm at a 645. And I know it's temperature related, but it's just frustrating. At a certain point, I'd rather shorten my run by 2K and do it a little bit faster, you know, allow the intensity factor and shorten them a little bit to accommodate for that heat. But yeah, so it's a nice change. The 3% of the group will get their scores off me and their paces as we move into the group. But it's a difficult time to motivate for training. It's a difficult time for everyone.
Well, I would have been. I'm in that 97% that told you where to go, but not for
You
that
did.
reason. I ended up doing the Klein GA 5K, 10K race down there. Really good pop-up races. Eric, I did a rare thing. I had a
Huh?
plan. I did a rare
No, I
thing
don't
with this
believe it.
10K. I had a plan and I stuck to it. I learned my lesson from the shotgun and I was like, no. I took off, started the race. I was like, right, we're going 4:45, try and hold that all the way through. Claude Marino was like dropping the 4:35 and I said, no. 4:45 is what you said, Sean. And I pulled back to 4:45 and I had pretty steady all the way through. And then my last kilometer, I was able to push a little bit more and it was like near 4:35 or something for the finish. And I was happy out under 47:30. I'm like, a plan that went together all the way through. 300 episodes of podcast is very rare to say that, but great out and down there. Very happy how to stick through. And now I've got an idea what my race splits could be for High Rocks in a couple of weeks' time. And I have a feeling we'll be talking a little bit more in this podcast about High Rocks and hybrid series and stuff coming up.
Did we talk about that last week?
No.
Anyway, Sean's a prick, and we'll find out next week why. Because we've used a lot of time. We've used a lot of time already at the intro. We need to get a few more bits out.
Exactly. We'll talk about it a little bit more. But speaking of, well, yeah, we're talking about 10Ks and stuff like that. And we want to give a big shout out to Darren Morgan, who did 1,600 kilometers, I think it is,
Sorry, yeah.
around the coast of Ireland swimming. We had Darren on the podcast a little bit over a year ago talking about his goal was to swim across Ireland, and then he has big homecoming there over the weekend after doing it. He's getting great exposure and deservedly so on RT News and everything else about it. Phenomenal achievement. I can't even comprehend it because I don't swim. But to do what he did there and to have the crew and all around him, it's absolutely phenomenal what he did. So huge boot of bust to him on that one.
Yeah, and I was following parts of his journey as well through it, and I remember thinking he could be in a bit of trouble. He actually got really bad cuts and chafing from the swimsuit. Like, I know what that's like. Even I had one. I remember I got a big one on my neck before I realised I was supposed to put anti-chafing cream on. Now, when you're in the water, as he is, exposed to salt water for hours and hours and hours,
Oh,
there's only so
Jesus.
much you can do. So, yeah, but when it scabs, it'll scab like overnight. But then when he goes swimming the next day, he has to like break the scab with the first stroke and the salt water and the
Oh.
stinging. So there was times there where he just had to go to a different place, to just achieve the goal. And I have to say, swimming around Ireland, I barely want to swim in the 40 foot, It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal achievement of what someone can achieve when they put their mind to it and dedicate themselves to it. And I know he's dreamt of that moment for a long time. But yeah, well done to Dara. You said you were going to do it. You did it. It's so phenomenal. And I think people should check it out because even when you see the map of it, you're like, no way. Sea monsters everywhere. No, not doing it.
So hard
But
to comprehend.
yeah, it's madness. But yeah, fantastic achievement. Really, really great.
Nice little segue here because sea swimming can lead to all sorts of things. And this week's episode of the podcast, we're going to find out how sea swimming somehow then ended up being a running club and everything else and marathons and teaming up with other people and doing group marathons and traveling to Europe and doing half marathons and everything else. This is a phenomenal episode. And I actually got to speak with some of the members of Shelters Running Club down at the Dublin Expo a couple of weeks back. They were in that video on the podcast and stuff, and everything that came across in this episode of the podcast came across in those lads as well. I got to meet our guest that comes up the podcast down in the Expo. Really excited for people to listen to this week's episode of the podcast.
Yeah, really, really good one, and a great group that are going from strength to strength. I think you even told him you go down on Christmas, didn't you, Sean? Anyway, that's it.
Not.
You know, roll the episode there. What'd you say, you liar? Get out of here.
Eric, we've done a lot of talking, so with that said, it's this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. Definitely not for Steve Simon. Let's go. Our next guest on the Any Given Run Day podcast is a runner who set up Shelters Running Community, is a member of Team SJ who have taken on a number of races, including last year's Dublin Marathon. And he's also a psychotherapist and counsellor with thisisusTherapy.ie, published in a self-discovery journal that titled What Was, What Is, What Now, a 12-chapter journey to bring awareness to various areas in our lives, to bring growth and change within these areas, to live a more peaceful, fulfilling life. Marcus Cowzer, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. How are you getting on?
Thanks very much, lads. Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
That's a great intro, Sean. You want to practice your reading a little bit more before you read his book. Anyway, that intro, what is it with you and butchering this? What's wrong with you?
Halfway through that, I was going to start again. I was like, you know what? I'll let it out. It looks smooth. So you're just going to abuse me, and people listening are going to go, that actually, you said it all right. That sounds pretty solid. What's Eric talking about? That's going to come across so smooth in the post edit. It's going to be unbelievable.
Marcus, I'm
going to
really
use that for the edits if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Marcus, you are very welcome to the Any Given Run Day podcast. You come with a wealth of experience, knowledge, a good background as we move into what is Movember. Everyone sees a lot about Movember. We're going to be talking about men's mental health. It's good that we have an outlet like this. The stuff that you talk about in the books and stuff is helpful to us guys and gals who are out there, because it's not just for men, it's for everyone, really, mental health. But before we dive into all of that, this is a running podcast and you do a little bit of running. But before that, how did you get into sport, or what dragged you into the sporting route?
Well, I suppose I played football from an early age, from the age of maybe 6 or 7. I was playing with home farm schoolboy football, and I played right up, I suppose, into my 40s. I had a couple of years away in England, and that didn't work out through various things. And then I just continued playing at junior level and senior level in Ireland, and right into the over 35s league. And then it just became that little bit difficult, 3 or 4 days after a match. It was becoming 5 or 6 days of injuries and soreness. And I suppose the head was telling me I was still 21, but the body wasn't. And the legs weren't getting to me for the tackles and the type of game that I played. So I stopped that. And I didn't have any aspirations to do any type of running at all. I never liked running, never enjoyed it, but give me a ball and I would run all day. Even when it comes to pre-season, I was always about the short and sharp stuff as opposed to the long distance. I was like, you never run for 3 kilometers on a pitch consecutively. It's always just short and sharp, And then I just fell in by chance. A guy asked me, because I sea-dipped down in the shelters in Portmarnock. So every Saturday, Sunday, we do a lot of cold water therapy. And there's a huge community down there. And someone asked me, would I do a beach to 5K for a charity event back in 2023, a 10-week block, just to get people up to 5K to run an event in the April. So we did that, and that was great. We stopped at the end of the 10 weeks. The run was in the April, and then there was nothing. It was just carry on, crack on, do your own thing. And then in the October, November, 2 ladies just asked me by chance, was I doing the beach to 5K again?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I hadn't planned it. Then more people kept asking me because they just thought it was a January, February thing to try and beat the Blues. And so we said we would. I said I'd put it out there. So I started putting on my social media and start getting a great response. A lot of messages, a lot of people asking. And I remember the first Saturday, the day we picked to start, it was a women's aid swim. It was a dip for women's aid. So the beach was packed. Like, I mean, there was so many there, and I was there, and I was trying to differentiate who's here for me and who's here for the dip. And so eventually I walked away with about 22, 25 people were saying they were here. And I said, look, that's still good numbers. And we went with the week one. But then obviously that afternoon, I got a lot of messages from people saying, sorry, we missed it. We were at the dip. We'll be there next week. And I was like, yeah, no problem. So there must have been about 50 or 60 there in the second week, it was just mind blowing.
Brilliant.
Marcus, what's that feeling like when you realise you can't stop now? Do you know what I mean? That it's like a lot of people showed up here. Do you know, this was just an idea, and now everybody's relying on me to be here every week. It's a good pressure, it's good stress, it's eustress, it's positive. But what was it like to go, what have I done?
Well, initially I said it's only for another 10 weeks. That's all I said. It's only, and it's going to get me through January and February. It'll get me through the winter months. It'll get me out. And one of the sayings I kept saying was just keep showing up. Trust the process and keep showing up. And as long as you show up, I'll be here. I was going to dip anyway. I was going to have a swim anyway. So, you know, if I can do half an hour at the beach,
40,
yeah. So word of mouth spread and people came, and some weeks it was 40, some there was 60. Like, there was massive numbers. And I was really blown away by it. So as the time went on, and we had our awards last January, and I went back in the group chat, you know, right back to the very beginning when they were doing 2 minutes running and 2 minutes walking, and they were really struggling. Like week two, they were like, I don't know how I'm going to get up to week 3. And it was great to have a look at that journey of how people have progressed and, you know, smashed every goal that's been in front of them. And that's the difference, I suppose, when you have that belief. And I always have that belief, if people show up for themselves and are committed to something, stay consistent, the results will come.
Was that nerve-wracking for you to get when you see back in January, myself and Eric, years and years ago, we did this Couch to 5K for Maynooth University. Well over 10 years. And we all met up on
ran 5K, by the way.
No, we all started at one end of the campus. Like, right, the best place to run is the other side, South Campus, North South Campus. People know it well from the student union, and it's around a little over a kilometre. It's like, right, we'll run there. We'll get our runs. There's a 1K loop at South Campus. We were so inexperienced in getting people to run that by the time they got to South Campus to start the event, they were goosed. Like, it was only 5-6 minutes to run down there. And then try and get them to run, walk, one rock. I'm like, Eric, like, they're college kids. Why aren't they all fit? Like, they should be grand. And just getting to build them into stuff like that. So when you started this and you were getting people to go, right, 2-minute run, 1 minute walk, and that kind of thing, like, because you're dealing with these athletes and, you know, football and all the rest, and such a higher level of fitness. I mean, to go back to that, was there a bit of a nerve-wracking start going, how do I get these to 5K in 10 weeks' time?
So one of the main things that I put in at the start was, I know, and listening to the pacers in your last episode, and I froze that bit where, like, I think it was 22 minutes in, where your mind will always tell you something different. And obviously that's the line of work that I'm in. So when you'll always have someone at different paces. So when we would set off for, say, 3 minutes or 2 minutes, you'd set off and I'd blow the whistle after the 2 minutes. One of the rules was we always, in the walk back, we walk back to the back. So the slower person will always start off the next 2 minutes. And we'll always go back you'll start always together, because what generally happens is when you run on and there's too many people in front of you, you're like, it's easy to say, I'll just turn back now. They won't even notice me.
Yeah, that would have been,
I don't know whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, but, you know, it sort of keeps everyone together in a group. And then we start off again for the 2 minutes and you blow the whistle, you go back. And it just keeps people together, because our slogan is, it's not a race, it's a community. The running was always secondary. It was always to bring people together and to make people feel part of something. And obviously the running is part of it. But I think when I saw the progress in people and there was no pressure, again, coming from a footballing background where I put all the pressure on myself and I put on this, I had to be the best, and everyone on my team had to be at the level that I was at. And, you know, just because I was staying in on a Saturday night, I'd be fuming at players that didn't. And, you know, I really wasn't a nice person, I don't think. I think my drive sort of put a lot of people off. But I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit of what that drive was about. But I think with the pressure of just getting to 2 minutes is a huge thing. And if it's a 9-minute kilometre pace or it's a 4-minute kilometre pace, you're still getting to do 2 minutes. You just bring it back. And as you said, finding your right pace to run for that 6 minutes would conserve your energy. And I was learning as we go along.
Marcus, how important was the group for each other? Because obviously you have a lot of people who are saying, I can't. And that's probably, or you're too fast, you're too good, I'm not a runner, I'm very slow, is how every Irish person introduces themselves before they give themselves a name. I'm not a runner, I'm really slow. Oh, by the way, I'm Eric. So how important was the group for finding that motivation to keep showing up and then to help each other? At what point as a coach did you see the group start to take over encouragement and everything else, the community element you spoke about?
Well, I think it was the WhatsApp group as well. So I had a WhatsApp group and I just said, look, if you can put your run, I used to send them in run work because we have people coming to Portmarnock. We have Darren and his family from Selbridge every week. We have Derek and his family from Navan. We have Michelle coming from Bray. We have Stuart coming from Neilstown. Now, these are people that were attracted to the sea dipping. So they might have come once a month or once every 2 weeks to go to the beach. But all of a sudden, they were coming up every week. They really bought into it. So when you set up a WhatsApp group and then people are putting in the run work, because we couldn't meet during the week. So on a Sunday, I'd say, look, repeat what we did on Saturday, do it twice. And then on Sunday, we'll step it up. And it was when they started putting their Stravas in or their heat maps in. And I just sat back and watched as everyone was like, well done, that's amazing. But it gave the other person motivation that was probably saying, I'm not going to do it this week. And they'd get up and then, it's always the coffee afterwards. The sea dip is a good, to get everyone into the water. It's a good way to bring people together and then just have the crack afterwards. So there was a natural community there as it was. But I think when they started doing something for themselves and really saying, I can do this, it gave them a little bit more of a self-belief. And myself.
And then after the 10 weeks finishes, you do a 5K on the beach. Is that what happens then for that?
Yeah, so we did January, February and February was generally beautiful. The sun rises, around 8 o'clock, 8:15, the sun rises. It was so beautiful and it was crisp and cold, but it was never that bad, for the time of year. But when we hit the end of the 10 weeks, we said we'll do our 5K, 2.5 up, 2.5 back, and we'll finish at the shelters. And Storm Amy was a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Double that. It's just horrible. It was windy, it was raining, it was open. But we had huge numbers. I think we had over 40 people doing it that day and just wanted to really get to that level and finish it and just sort of get that medal.
Yeah.
I suppose week 8 words started happening. People were saying, I'm really enjoying this. Are you going to finish this? Are you going to continue it on? And I hadn't planned to like the previous year, but I said, look, I will. But we don't stop at 5K, can we not aim towards something else? So the OGs, I like to call them, the first block had said, okay, we'll hang on, but we'll maybe try to get to 6K and then to 7K. And then all of a sudden we started a second block where there was another group starting from scratch. And then all of a sudden,
very good.
And we're on to block 7 now. They're actually, block 7 are doing their 5K this Saturday.
Brilliant.
It's amazing.
Marcus, at what point did you go from, right, we're doing 5Ks, and then I see on your Instagram, you're doing half marathons at Alicante, you're down in Rome doing half marathons, like with shelters and all the rest. When did you start to approach maybe 10, maybe 15? Did that come naturally? Did that come in the WhatsApp group, or was that you wanting to push them on?
Well, I'm one of these people, I wouldn't expect anyone to do something that I haven't done. Now, I've never ran more than 10K. I'll admit the 5K to me even was like, right, get me to that. But I said, if we're going to aim towards 10K, I might as well do a 10K. So I might have went out week 8 and done a 10K and okay, that was tough. I know what's ahead of them.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine then said the Harbour Holt to Dunleary is a walk that they do every Paddy's Day. I think it's a charity. And she said, well, we run it. And I said, yeah, I'll give it a go. Why don't we give it a go? So we ran it, stopped at 13K at East Wall. Worst thing we could have done. The legs were heavy, but we kept going and I ended up telling her to go on, right? And but I remember they had only done their 5K run and in that weather. I said, I'm really going to finish this for them, you know. But I ended up going into People's Park, okay, by mistake. I didn't go along the coast, and it was Paddy's Day. I saw a high-vis jacket, and I said, these must be part of the walk or the run, so I'll aim towards them. But obviously, it was Paddy's Day, and out of nowhere, a load of kids start running towards me. About 25 kids start running towards me. So I'm running, gasping for air. It was like my Rocky moment, you know.
Jumping over park benches.
Yeah. And I looked ahead and I saw this big leprechaun. The guy was dressed up as it was Leprechaun Dash.
Hydration is key to fueling endurance performance.
Perform Nutrition's Electrolytes Plus sachets have been specifically designed to fill the need for advanced hydration for athletes.
With 1,000 milligrams sodium, all essential electrolytes, and 2,500 milligram performance blend made up of glutamine, taurine, and coconut water powder, one sachet will replenish and revitalize your hydration.
Using natural flavors, natural colors, no added sugar, and no added fillers, each sachet has a sweet and lightly salted fruity flavor and comes in either mixed berry or citrus.
Informed, sport tested, and trusted by Olympians such as Kate O'Connor, world champion boxer Aoife O'Rourke, and pro triathlete Nikki Bartlett, and many more elite athletes.
Trust Perform to fuel your excellence, and by listening to this advert, you are supporting Irish businesses and this podcast. Now let's get back to the episode.
Marcus, at what point did you wake up?
Exactly. So when I got to the guys in the high vis, I said, "Is this to harbour?" And they said, "No, you have to go up the stair." And I had to go up these stairs. And but I remember sending them videos, and I was like, "Look, you are the guys that got me through this." But it was horrific, and I said, "How are we going to do that? You know, how are we going to get to that level?" And then I did Inishmore half marathon for the Matter Foundation, and that was my first one. So I said, "Okay, we have to aim towards a half marathon." When I came back from Inishmore, I booked Rome. I always wanted to see Rome, so I booked a half marathon for October. And the next week, in the group chat, about 15 people put in their flight details. We're coming to Rome. Then I went up to 20. Then I went up to 25, and we said, right, that's our goal. That was our aim, and that was it. Maybe the March, April, May, I think it was, and we were aiming towards the October for the half marathon, and that's when the panic set in for everybody. A half marathon.
Deadly.
Wow. That is it is a big step up when we talk about those first 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off to a half marathon. It can seem daunting to a lot of people, but I've no doubt that these are the same people that thought they couldn't do a 5K. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so what happened then was we done the Fingal 10K. One of our members had never done more than 5K. She just never did. She would admit that she was quite slow. And I said, look, we'll be there at the finish line. You know, you take it on. So she'd done the 10K, and the railings and all were being taken off. But the guy was still in the cabin talking, and we saw her coming around the corner. And about 15 of us went behind her, and we brought her over the finish line.
Deadly.
So the guy was saying, oh, that's great camaraderie and well done to this community spirit, and wow, this is fantastic. It was a great shot. It was a great picture, but that's what we do. We wait till the end and we finish. We wait till everyone's finished. But as they ran across everyone, some two ladies pulled me and said, can we have a word? Who are you from? And asked me what my story was. And I said, yeah, listen, this is the community. We're the shelters. We've recently signed up to Athletics Ireland. And she said, have you entered the half marathon or full marathon? And it was Jean and Joan from Dublin Marathon. And I said, no, they're all sold out. And she said, will you email us on Monday? Oh. So I said, absolutely, yeah, of course. So I said, we might have a chance for the half marathon, your hometown half marathon, I said to a few of them. So I put in a poll, who would like to do the 10 miler half marathon? And I think I put in full marathon. I think I did, because a couple of them did click it. And right enough then, Ian from Fingal County Council and Active City said, look, we'd like to help you and support you, and you're doing great things. And he got in touch and said, will you give me your names and emails of people that want to do the half marathon and the full marathon?
Whoa. Did that tempt you, Marcus? Did it tempt you?
So I said to myself, do you know what? I'm doing it because, again, I'm not going to expect them to do anything that I wouldn't do. So
Yeah.
I sent over, I think it was 15 names. I just said by chance. And we had Rome the week previous. We were only training for the half marathon. This was around the August time. So with that, we got a couple of guys texting me saying, I think they made a mistake, Marcus. I'm after getting a full marathon ticket here in the post, you know. I went, whoops. So I said, look, why not? Let's smash it. Let's go and do it, you know. So 15 of us then had to up our training block to longer runs and to keep Dublin Marathon in mind. And I was lucky enough then to be asked to be part of Team SJ, which was just amazing for me. Dublin Marathon was probably up there one of my greatest days. That was amazing for us because we used to leave the shelters at 8 a.m, pick a route, and then we'd come back one by one or three by, you know, depending on the groups, and some would take 4 hours to do a 34k run, and I think they were more in shock that they actually did the 34k because 8 months previous, they were only getting up to 5k.
It's phenomenal. How much was fear driven, as well as, you know, motivation to do a marathon? Because, like you said, you can't ask people to do something you haven't done yourself, but you hadn't done it. So you're lining up, you're lacing up with these, and it's unknown. A marathon is unknown till you do your first. And you can say that now because you learned, and I'm sure you all learned a lot about yourself. But what was it like the couple of days before, the unknowns, the 34k, and then it's like, right, we're starting a marathon. What was that feeling like for all of you? Because, as you said, within a year, we've gone from a 5k and now we're standing on the start line of Dublin.
So things happen, I suppose. We were very lucky. The community was very lucky, but I personally have been very lucky that just by chance, this guy couldn't sleep one Saturday morning and decided to get out for a walk, a bit of fresh air, you know. And he arrived down. It was another rainy morning, and I was doing my usual team talk at the start, and he jumped in and asked could he come for a run, and he loved it. And I got chatting to him afterwards, and it was Gary Seary, he's now the vice chairman, but Gary has over 70 ultra marathons under his belt, including the Antarctic Marathon, and like he's an absolute legend. So to have him on board and have him there to give advice and guidance is just, it's priceless. We've John Foreman, we had a couple that jumped in because they seen we were actually up in our distance and we weren't just the 5Kers anymore. Asked could they come on board, and they had a bit of running experience. David Dowling, a friend of mine as well, he used to run down at the beach and talk about it. So there's always been people there to help us, and that's what we're so grateful for, because the running communities, there's always somebody there to Tom Griffin was our physio, and he would give us voice notes to sort of tell the guys. Then Katrina McKiernan came on as a bit of a coach.
Very good.
Through Active Cities as well. She came down and had a chat with us just to give us a little bit of running tips and stuff like that. So we're constantly learning. But yeah, the week leading up, because we done Rome as a taper.
Your first half marathon race was a taper. I love it.
And, because we've got that race day energy, we were sort of saying we have to take our time. But Rome was full of cobblestones, and I think we were more nervous about going over because now we set ourselves Dublin. But so I was, the heat was taken off me a little bit. Well, not to say a little bit, but I was doing long runs in the park with Keelan and out with Team SJ. So I would double up sessions Saturday in the shelters and then Sunday in the park. And the team of 5 of us would work together in our training block. So they had done marathons before. They had other running experience. So they were sort of helping me. My biggest worry was I had really bad IT band problems, like really, really bad. The training didn't go well for me. I was panicking. I did Longwood and I think I cried for 20k. I was just like, how am I going to do this? I'm going to let so many people down. And because I was running at maybe a 5:50 pace, I was really pushing it because it was my first year and I was pushing. I was putting more strain on it. I eventually got it sorted and got physio. But then with the buggy, we were doing it at 6:30 pace and I could have ran all day. I was dancing, skipping, singing. It was a dream.
Are your muscles tight, tired, and sore after training? Or maybe you're trying to get ready for your next run?
Make these ultra pure hero recovery products a regular part of your routine.
2 must-haves for active lives.
First, we have the Wintergreen Heat Rub Cream, perfect for warming up before your workout.
And then we have the Epsom Salts Gel with Arnica, ideal for soothing and support after exercise.
A simple, natural way to care for your muscles both before and after your activity.
Proudly guaranteed Irish and made in County Mayo by an award-winning family business, Ultra Pure means quality you can feel and trust.
Shop these Ultra Pure favourites online today at ultrapurelabs.ie. Grab yours now and give your muscles the care they deserved. Also, a fantastic stocking fillers for all your runners. By listening to this advert, you are both supporting Irish businesses and this podcast. Now let's get back to the episode.
Marcus, for people who don't know Team SJ, so you're running for the first time. Your first marathon, and me and Eric had talked before in the podcast, like our first marathon, we ran beside each other, shouldn't have done it, paces kill each other. But your first marathon, you're running with Team SJ, you're running with a group. What is Team SJ and what did that involve?
Okay, so again, as I said, things seem to just happen for us, and I feel it's meant to be. So, people that you meet and the journey that you're on. We were running the Share Street 5K one day, and I was running up the hill, and I could see Keelan pushing a buggy, and I had known Keelan from doing a half Ironman. I sort of followed her on Instagram, and now I just said, "Do you need a hand?" And she said, "Would you mind giving us a hand up the hill?" So we pushing up the hill, and our sister Sarah Jane is in the buggy, and we just clicked. We just had a laugh. Now they were ripping it out of me for the whole 3 or 4K. And I had a bit of a thick skin, so it was a bit of laugh. And then she just said to me, "Oh, I'll keep you in mind for Dublin." And she winked, and I just went, "That was amazing, and I'd love to." But then she was on to me and saying, "Look, I'm not taking it away from your first. If you want to do your first, go and do it." But I said, I had such a great time, and it was such a great experience, and that's her why, being able to do that.
Yeah.
And I said, to be even part of that and to be asked to be part of it was a huge honour for me. And she said, "I don't want to take the pressure, put the pressure on you." And part of me was saying, is the pressure taken off me because I'm now doing it with the buggy as opposed to time? But then with the IT band, the pressure was added on because maybe I'm going to hold the guys back. And there was so much. But for an experience like that, for your first marathon, I really couldn't have picked a better one.
What was the feeling like, Marcus, when you enter that unknown as you come around that last, once you cross that 34K that most of you have done, you've been there, you know how much it hurt. You cross that, you're very much into an unknown, you're with the buggy, you're with others, you're all hurting a little bit. What was that feeling like for you as you progressed through the final stages? And then, of course, crossing that finish line in the company of such nice people.
Yeah, I think this year, we're part of it. But from what I believe, and I know you are going a long time with the podcast, but the running community scene has seemed to have grown. It's like really, really multiplied. So we noticed a lot more.
Thank God, keeps us going.
That's what I'm saying.
That's for this last year.
On the course, yeah, absolutely. On the course, you see them all, and people are screaming your name and supporting you. And I think they used to, at the hype corners, they made sure, don't let him on the buggy because I'd always go a little bit faster, But when we came down by Foster's Avenue and then onto UCD, and then a couple of our members, Helen, Aoife and Susie, were just at RTE, and I was like, I could see them, and I went, I'm nearly there. Like, we're nearly there. And then when we hit the RDS, then it was better than any football stadium I've ever been in, because it's just people just either side of you, and they're calling and screaming and shouting. And I was lucky enough, obviously, last year was the first one, the slalom finish.
Yes, yeah, in and around, yeah.
It was magical. Now, Keelan was struggling at that stage. She'll admit, she said, I can't even see, but we were holding her together, and we were all together, and I think the adrenaline just took over. And she's a little rock star. You could see the pride on her face pushing her sister across that line, and even getting the medal, and we were all in unison together. And that picture is one of my favourites, of myself, Noel and Martin and Peter and Keelan. And it's just hard to describe, you know, and then to see Sarah Jane getting her medal, and yeah, it's a special moment. The only problem is that you can't get back out and see other people coming in.
It's such a long loop, big loop around, because I know some people doing it this year. And I'd love to be like just at the finish line you can with so many races, but I can't imagine that feeling, because every time I've crossed it, it's been alone. And there's been a few that have been fairly fucking overwhelming getting across that. But then when you're doing that for that bigger reason, having those people with you and sharing that journey all the way through, I actually can't imagine what you're feeling. And for your first one, on top of all that, like our first one, I was a bit crossing, I think, but for many different reasons. But for that's such a special one, especially for your first one and in Dublin and everything else.
Yeah, and I think it did help me with my pressure. I suppose being the coach or the head of the shelters running community, we had a running group, we had a Dublin separate group, and sort of the book stopped with me, and I was like, everything I say, I'll have to, you know, they're going by my words. But maybe I was panicking a little bit, or needed a hand, or needed some support a little bit to be able to. And that was my outlet. The Team SJ group was my outlet, because Martin had run various marathons before, and Keelan and Noel. So there was a lot of support when it came to nutrition and rest, and even just checking in the middle of the night, you know, just how's everyone doing. And that sort of stuff is so important, I think, because the nerves do set in. But I woke up that morning. We all woke up at 5 o'clock, and we were all texting, who's up and what are we doing? And the nerves start setting in. And then we went in front the waves, and we met the other buggies. And I remember we were coming around. We got to the Phoenix Park, Chesterfield Avenue, and it was free. We start going past a couple of the walkers. I think we just go after wave one. And then you just hear, it's like hear the buffalo. You could actually hear the ground moving, and you start like wave two is coming at you.
Oh man,
I felt that.
Yeah, you just like stand still. I mean, so that's where the teamwork comes in, where, you know, you've one on left and right, and one in the front and one at the back, just to protect the buggy, and even just to protect the other runners, that they don't try and overtake the person at the back and run straight into the buggy. So there is a little bit of manoeuvring, but we have it down to a T. But I think, yeah, it is special. It is special. I don't think I do Dublin without Team SJ.
Working with a team, going through that, and you talked about there the RDS feeling better in the football stadium. Any parallels to your football and stuff before that, or different kind of pressure, doing runs and being accountable for shelters, running club, and all that? Is there a parallel, or did you learn or lean back on your experiences from football into that, or is it completely different?
Yeah, no, there's a few similarities, but I think this time I'm just being more honest. I've limited knowledge. I'm not a running coach now. I've done courses, not since then, but I'm only going on what we're hearing and what works for us. And you know, I'll always give 2 or 3 options. The difference with the football, I suppose, you know, for years I put so much pressure on myself. My whole outlook on how I saw myself, self-esteem, self-worth was proven over 90 minutes. And if we didn't win, you know, that would affect me, with my friends, with my partners, with my family, with myself, how I would speak to myself. Because I felt I'd let my dad down and people down, and, you know, teammates, I was so much giving out to them, because I was like, come on, you don't understand, we need to win this game. But I took the fun aspect out of it, and I really put so much added pressure onto it, where with running, you know, the person who gets sub 2 or the person who gets sub 5 is still getting the same medal. They still have to run the same distance. It's just the level at where they're at. And, you know, I suppose in football now they have A level, B level, you know, the different levels of sport, and you stay with that level. But I think you're finishing something that the top level is still finishing. Doesn't matter about time. So it takes that pressure off. And Davey, my friend Davey Downs, always saying, if you're not smiling, you're doing something wrong. And I don't think I smiled a lot playing football. Obviously, when you score a goal, you win a match, but during the game, during the process. So I think being part of a team, or now that my training block the last few months, I've smiled every training session. Like, really smiled. And race day, it's full of smiles. Watching people cross the finish line, you know, the nerves at race line, it's smiling though. It's a good energy, you know. And I think that's something that I won't change. When that pressure becomes on, trying to hit PBs, trying to you know, get better than something else, I think that's when it becomes that little bit too hard on me personally. So I think the communities, having a safe community like that is healthy. But sometimes if you're putting too much pressure on yourself to prove to others, you take the fun out of it.
Marcus, how important is Shelters Running Club to you and to your transition from, let's call it, the identity? I know I played it all through my childhood. I was going to be like you. Had big aspirations of what I was going to be as a footballer, and then it doesn't happen, and you have that reality. You played a lot longer than I did. But that transition from the identity as a footballer, that's what it was. That's what you eat, breathe, sleep. And then you go for a couple of dips. It ends up in a 5K. How important, in hindsight, looking back over 2 to 3 years, was that transition for your mental transition into not being a footballer and finding another outlet?
Well, from obviously from my line of work, I think the community aspect, I think Brian Penny speaks a lot about the opposite to addiction is connection. So I think when people are feeling lost, to connect to someone or something is massive. And I think if you can find the right community, because there's so many out there, if you can find the right people, it does help massively. Like, we've had so many people coming on their own. They've just rocked up to the beach. They've saw our social media, asked they come along, and they'll come on along for the first week, but they'll leave with so many friends or so many faces that they know the second week. But for me, I've learned an awful lot with my just being not so hard on myself. This is a part of me now to be part of watching people create their goals or get that self-belief in themselves has given me self-belief. The friendships I've made and the friendships and the relationships that we see growing each day is so big. For something that I said was just going to be a sea dip. I spoke at a workshop a few weeks ago, and I admitted it for the first time in 30 years. When I was playing, I was in England. They said I'd end up in a wheelchair if I kept at that level by the time I was 18. So they said they'd be back in touch with me, the club, in so I went back to school, but I was still a superstar in school. People were still saying, "You're going to be this," and I won all the sports days. And I remember going to a county athletics, and there was a 1500 meters, and I said, I'm going to do it. But I'd won everything in my school, but this one, I was coming in at fourth into the last lap, and my head just twigged that I can't afford to not be on the podium. I can't afford to be in the top three, because that's who I am. And I faked an injury. I faked a hamstring pull, and I pulled out and I did not finish. And that was my last sort of experience with running. So to come back and to finish what we start was always a big thing for me. And I suppose that was maybe me driving that, because when I finished my first 5K or my first half marathon, the Dublin marathon, every time I crossed the finish line, it's like the pressure was off me. It doesn't matter where I came or what my placing is. Yes, the times are great, and because that will come naturally. I think your fitness. The girls don't even know how to use Strava or average pace, but when they're on it, you'll see PB, PR. It's just coming naturally when there's no pressure. They're just getting fitter and they're getting better and they're learning how to run longer and faster. So that's without the pressure. And I think for me, life sometimes is like that. So life puts on so much pressure, or we put that on ourselves, that it makes us feel stuck, makes us feel, tight and closed, and we feel trapped sometimes. That when you have that freedom to express, it's powerful.
And from your experience in your line of work then, what parallels can you draw from the running club and that release, and what does it give people, when you're recommending people to, as you mentioned there, the connections are the real trip. By the way, I'm taking that phrase and sticking on a t-shirt and selling it. If anyone wants to buy it, €10. But in seriousness, the from your line of work mixed in with your hobby, what parallels can you draw from that? And what are you seeing in people who are getting involved with the community and getting involved with running in particular? Because the resistance to running is very little. If you have a pair of shoes and you can walk, you can possibly run. So what are you seeing in the benefit side of that?
Well, you're meeting like-minded people. You have to start small. So, I think anyone that says they hate running are generally the people that run out the door for the first time and try and do a 5K at a pace that they used to sprint at and hate it. And that's their one and only. So you start small. So in life, if you set yourself little goals, little steps, I always say celebrate the small wins because they end up becoming massive wins at the end. But it's making those small ones and appreciating them. Kindness and compassion is two of the words I use quite a lot in my therapy when I'm speaking to someone. I think as men, we don't give ourselves kindness and compassion. As humans, maybe sometimes we tend to give it to everybody else. So give yourself a break, but appreciate what you achieved. And if that's a 10K or an 11K or 11.5, and celebrate that, and if you have to do a 9K before and then go to 12K, it doesn't necessarily mean you're moving backwards, but just getting back up. And when people are coming back from an injury, and I know Barry was on, and it's difficult when you're not getting. I got COVID a couple of weeks ago coming back from Porto, and every time I looked out the window, I was like, "You think you're so funny running, don't you? All you hating on everyone, and with an injury." So again, just starting slow again and going, getting back out there. Because there's so many other people in the same boat as you. There's so many people that are probably struggling that they're going to get to that level. And next of all, they're running beside you. And what are you doing today? I'm just doing 4 today. Yeah, I'll tip away with you. And conversations are made and they come back lighter.
Marcus, you talk about community and stuff there. Another thing you're doing, 12 hikes in 12 months, men's only hikes. You were a guest speaker last May doing for 200 men going for these hikes. How it's even hard for me to ask this question because and Eric's the same, because even in the intro to the podcast, Eric was like, we're talking about Movember and stuff, and he was like, men's health, but obviously women go through health as well. And as men, like you're talking about there, we always say like, oh yeah, but other people are suffering as well. It's not just me. Like it's just, we kind of put it off. Like how tough is it talking about being the guest speaker, getting men to go to these kind of events and opening up and the challenges and stuff that Movember brings? Can you talk a little bit about that to us?
Yeah, so I think, it took me a long time. Like I'm 50 now, but it took me a long time to find out who my authentic self was. I always had a mask on. I always had a front to put on, or I had to be someone else, And I suppose lived experience, actually getting in and doing the work and doing work on myself, or going to therapy, having a better relationship with myself. Because I'd say in therapy, it's just about the client having a better relationship with themselves. Like we can't choose the other people in our lives, but when we give ourselves a bit more kindness and compassion, we become a little bit softer. So I suppose getting up and speaking about life experiences and sharing my story, I suppose, is easy enough for me because I've got comfortable with the pain and I've got comfortable what I've gone through, and hopefully one little thing through a podcast or through my book or through a talk, someone might go, do you know what, that's after hitting a nerve there. I want to investigate that a little bit more, or there goes my fear about going to therapy, or maybe he'll be able to direct me into something. And people do reach out then, because now they can feel it's not just about, like I did my thesis on men's mental health and the change over 20 years ago. Men thought mental health was schizophrenic, bipolar, people that rock in chairs. They didn't think anxiety, grief, depression, self-esteem was under that umbrella. And they just cracked on and thinking, I'll just get on with it.
Is men's health getting worse or better? You hear about like suicide rates, most of them are men and that kind of thing. And you being right in the middle of all this, and the fact that we know more about it and there's a little bit more talk about like 20 years ago, what's men's mental health? Just, get on with it, pull up your bootstraps, over phrases. And because more people are talking about it, is it getting better? Because I don't know about yourself. I know Eric and myself, we know so many people, not so many, but a lot of people, in their 20s, 30s, stuff like that mental health got just too much for them. Are we making progress in it?
I'd like to say yes, but the numbers aren't backing that up.
Right.
I think more and more men are open to speaking about it now. Being around mentors or being in communities that are openly talking about their feelings and emotions, or maybe directing them, because sometimes when we're in the family, the generations, it's that I don't want to be the odd one out, or I can't speak about that. And I had that myself. You don't know how to speak to the men in your family. So finding a mentor, finding someone that you can confide in, and just let you know that you're normal. Everything's okay for having these thoughts. But when you're on your own and you feel you're the only person, and again, this is just from personal, but it's lonely. It's so lonely, and you really do feel lost, and you seclude yourself, and you don't want to be around people. And I thrived in dressing rooms. I love dressing rooms, but then dressing rooms ended up being a bit too much for me, and I had to veer away. And then you go into isolation. COVID didn't help, and the gaming situation where you're having conversations with people online, but you're not great socially. So there's an add-on for so much that I think running and sports clubs, boxing and running and football can bring in to help. The thing about Movember is it's not just about mental health, but people always say mental health when they say health. It's about your prostate. It's about getting lumps checked, or which we don't do anyway. I think we get that fear. We're fear-based, men are. But then I have this argument that why is it only Movember? What's wrong with December and February and March? And we have these set months for these where it gets highlighted, but does it go missing as the year goes on? It should be a conversation that should be had on the daily.
Marcus, how difficult is that first conversation to say, I need to talk to somebody? I am not okay. Because we've mentioned it before, I think, in a podcast with a couple of guests, to stand up in front of a room of people or even your loved ones and say, I'm not okay, is probably one of the most difficult things to do. You feel like you've divulged state secrets and everybody's going to die. Like it's that weight, that feeling for, and that's how I would describe it with certain things, is a huge weight on your shoulders. And you talk about pressure in sport, but now we're talking about the pressure in your own life and in your own head and in your own person. How difficult is that first conversation to move towards a bit of help?
Well, I relate everything back to, so even when I was injured, if I was injured and I'd say I'm feeling a bit of a niggle, the lads would go, give over, you're okay. And you'd play through an injury and you could do yourself more damage.
It's like that, like that hamstring from the sports day again, Marcus, huh?
Here we go again. But now I'm like, I'm not, even now, I suppose, with running, if I feel a twinge, I'm listening to my body, I'm saying, okay, I know what's a niggle and I know what needs to be checked out. But when people say, would you give over? Come on, get out on that run, you could do yourself more damage. When you hear that conversation in someone's house going, I'm feeling a bit down, how would you, come on, have an L pint, will sort it. Or, come on, we'll go for a pint, or we'll go to the match, or we'll stick on the telly. And that was just the easy way out. That doesn't work anymore, because, blocking out whatever pain a drink may help, a drug may help, because you're trying to put that pain away, but then the pain is still there. The sadness is still there. Whether you're hungover or the come down, or you've even just wake up the next day, it's back. And it is lonely, because you do probably think, myself, I thought I was the only one that felt like this. I had a lovely partner, had a great house, had a good job. I had a cheek to be sad, the cheek of me. So it did take a lot. It took maybe 3 to 6 months of me looking at a number and saying, will I or won't I? Will I? Who do I find? Who's the right person? And again, by chance, I just booked in with someone, and then I cancelled, and then where I was working, the same name came in and booked in. Like, it was a lady's name, but it was the same name as the therapist. And I went, well, maybe that's a sign. And I went, and I wouldn't be a therapist if it wasn't for my therapist, because she ended up saying to me that I had a good eye and a good ear, and the way I was working things out, did I ever think about being a therapist? So stuff happens just like that. But initially, it's difficult. It's difficult. And what I've learned is you have to meet people in their shoes. Because, if I have a broken arm and, you have a broken arm, whose pain is more? I can still work because it's a broken arm, but you mightn't be able to work, which means you're housebound, which means you're not socializing, which means you're not interacting. So mentally, it could be actually a lot worse than you. It's just still the broken arm. So being able to meet someone and go, I feel your pain. I understand it. It must be tough.
Is this a full circle moment that goes back to the start of this podcast? We talked about you jumping into the sea, swimming and all that. Because as someone who hates the water, I can't understand why anyone would jump into the sea any time of year, let alone November, December, January, and all the rest leading into all that. Is that one of the is that one of the reasons you jumped in? You talked about cold water therapy and stuff at the start of this podcast. Is that a reason?
Do you know what? Again, it's only just personal, and probably people will shoot me for this because those people that have ice baths out on their back, and fair play to them, because I wouldn't do it on my own. I did it for the community aspect. I liked the shelters. I liked the energy that it brought. Yes, the sea dipping had to be included, and so you're arguing, you're battling in bed. You're sort of saying, "Oh, I'm not going out today," and then you get out of bed and you're in the car and you're like, "Oh, I'm not going to get out. The wind is blowing," and then you're in the car and you get out of the car and you go, "Oh, the tide is miles out." So you're battling constantly.
Yeah.
But when you get in and you immerse yourself for 3 or 4 minutes and get your breathing right and you're just calm, when you come out, it's as if you'd said, right, I've beaten my mind. I've won the day. Bring on anything. Bring on anything, because I won. And I think sometimes we're the ones that tell ourselves that we can't do something. We're the ones that tell ourselves that we're not good enough. Yes, there's a belief from somewhere, but effectively we're the ones that can try and change it and say, do you know what, you're not going to win today.
I think that's a huge benefit of it, because when people talk about cold water therapy, some like, oh, well, the science says this, it's not that great for your body, that's just a placebo effect and all the rest. But what you just said there was, that's a challenge of going out there. You're in that warm car, the heater's on and everything, well, it is in my case, and you're looking out and going, maybe it is a bit choppy, it's not that safe today, I'm going to drive off and do something else, or there's too many people watching, or whatever reason comes in your head at the time, and off you go. But when you face that battle and you do it, like, it's the same, not going for people listening that don't do that, like myself, going for that run, you don't want to go when it's a bit wet out, but when you do it, mentally, you feel so much better for it.
I think you've often said it on the podcast, you never feel bad after the run that you decided to do. You'll always feel worse at the one that you didn't do. And
what is next for Shelters Running Club now that what is next? What's next goals?
Well, the next goal is obviously we're going to have 30 people doing Dublin Marathon now on Sunday week, and that, it's mind blowing. It's nearly triple of what we did last year. It's 35, I think, doing it. So getting the lads geared up for that and getting their nerves settled, and even the ones that have done it, they know what's ahead of them. I just think it's amazing. Then we have the Dundalk half in February. So one of our newest members, just put into the group that he bought a ticket he's only up to about 9k, and he put in the Dundalk half marathon ticket, and he said, any advice or tips, throw them my way. It was a Saturday night. I think 28 people signed up that night. I said, we don't give advice and tips, but we go on numbers and we help you. So they're already looking forward to the track. They're already looking forward to the next goal after the marathon, working together towards that. There's a few of us doing Donna D. Again,
brilliant.
That's my limit now. I said it to them. I'll only go as far as that, because anyone that wants to do triathlons, which they've done Tri-a-Thai, and a few have signed up to Ironman for next year. And I'm like, no way. I said, I can take it as far as 50k from running. Then it's on to Gary.
You say that now, Marcus. You say that now.
No, we'll pick a trip away. We'll pick a half marathon to get away for the weekend, and maybe hopefully just get into this ballot now for next year for Dublin, and hopefully get a few numbers for that. The thing about it is, it's the beauty of it is there's always something. But if you just show up every week, every week seems to have someone smashing something. If it's a time, if it's a distance, if it's, as I said, this Saturday, our Block 7 are doing their first, and you know they're going to be starting their journey towards the 10K now. So yeah, just keep growing and keep spreading good vibes, I suppose, and being around. And you are more than welcome to drop down every Saturday, anytime you want.
Yeah, Sean, get down there and swim. Will you?
Eric, nice and warm
in June, July, August, in the summer.
Yeah.
He's back in February, just around Dundee time. So when you're talking to him down there, you rope him into down that beach. Maybe next August, if it's a really, really warm way, if we're in the middle of a heat wave. In the middle of a heat wave, next August, I've got a chance of making that sea down there.
More chance of me jumping in the lake at Dundee and running 50k. Anyway, that's a fact.
Thanks, you're really helping here.
Marcus, it does. Now, look, we will when we're back. I'll bring Sean down. He swims like a brick. It's going to be hilarious. But Marcus, when we people have listened, they're curious. How do people get in touch? How do they find shelters? How do they get involved with such a fantastic club?
So we're on Instagram. The Shelters Running Community is on Instagram. I'm Marco161, so a lot of it is linked to my page. But the Shelters is generally, the girls look after that. They do a great job, and they look after anybody that's interested when the next blocks are starting. But then just pop down on a Saturday morning, and obviously the next couple of weeks we're going to be doing shakeouts and finishing up the 5K and then Dublin Marathon, and then starting then we'll be all on the beach from now till November to December, because the girls have affirmed that we're not doing any more long runs. Apart from the ones that are doing Dundee, they just want to be on the beach doing 2 or 3K runs and on the beach, having their coffee, getting back to basics, and we restart again in January.
Do you do a Christmas swim?
Oh, Christmas Day, Stephen's Day, but yeah. Bank Holiday Monday after the marathon is normally a great day as well. We get for a dip because a few of the other running communities come down with the medals, and we have the tops on and the hats, and then we get,
very good. Maybe I'll make it out for a Christmas swim just to prove Sean wrong anyway. But it'll be good. Marcus, it has been an absolute pleasure. It is fantastic to see you're getting so many people involved in running, and in such a positive way with no pressure, and to just enjoy it, and the community aspects. Fantastic. We wish you the very best. We hope more people come down and join, and those blocks go bigger than you can even handle, and then maybe you do feel a little bit of pressure. But
I do feel more coaches now. I need to get more coaches. But listen, the community are great, and the board is great, and we have a few coaches there, Teresa and Gary and Paul, and they do. We all bunch in and help out one another, because I do like the long running now. So I've done a D to be training for. I can't be doing those 2Ks on the beach.
But it's been, we wish you, and those who have been brave to show up for those first times and those swims, well done. And we hope many more continue to join you. It's been fantastic. We will join you at some point for a swim, and we will get to meet Eric. Some fantastic people. Sean, you're coming. It's all right. Get in the van. So that's it for this week's episode of the Any Given Run.
Absolute pleasure.
No, Eric, you're not winding up this podcast. No, that's my gimmick, and I'll steal that from you along with everything else. Before we wrap it up, I do have one more question. Marcus, this isustherapy.ie. That is where you get your book, and you book therapy sessions and stuff through that as well, Marcus, or what's the deal?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a booking system on the website, and I've recently introduced the gift of therapy, where I suppose people can buy a gift voucher and gift to someone that may feel will benefit from therapy, as opposed to telling someone you have to go or you should ring, which I think can be quite daunting. So I think giving a voucher to say, look, I'm after booking you on, or it's paid for, it allows them to come for one session and just see that it's not as scary as they may have imagined, and even might be able to feel a little bit lighter afterwards. So I think the gift of therapy was something that I came up with, and there's a tab to buy that on the website as well.
And with that said, Eric, my deal here, not you. That is it for this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. So myself, Marcus, and Eric, take care. I'm so scared of messing that up.